We have a few little technical difficulties going on in the background. Hopefully, everything is going well now. We couldn't log on to our Instagram feed, but now we are going on Instagram and on YouTube. Yes, I have cracked the code. Thank goodness. Anyways, let's do this right here. Let's minimize that. And let's go on to this right here. Bing, bang, bong. Yes. So, thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And now we have our Instagram feedback here. So, right now, now that things are moving forward, I can look at my Instagram and my YouTube chats here on Talk Live. I'm just looking for my technical staff to send me a message to say that all is well. And if that is the case, then we are on the move. But let's not waste any more time because we are an hour behind, quite simply, nearly darn near a high hour behind. But I finally got the kinks worked out here. And we are back here on Talk Live, live on IG and YouTube. And we're doing the Diddy Trail, ladies and gentlemen. And we're sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTALK.com. Let's not waste any more time. Diddy Trail, we're back into it. We're dealing with Friday, Monday, and today. But let's see if we are up to date on all those fronts before we head into that. And that would be maybe. Yes, it looks like we are there. Yes, indeed. June 16th. Yes, June 16th. Okay, well, fine. We'll deal with what it is. It is what it is. And we'll deal with Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, June 16th. Tuesday, June 16th, anyways. And we will get back into it here on Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you very much for joining me here. If you want to comment on anything we say here, please do. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen.
Compel
we are streaming live here as we go.
The name of another extremely famous.
So we're going back here. Hold on a second.
And the woman
we're just setting things up here.
Quite
quick. Okay, so we are ready. We are ready to go here on Talk Live. All right, so we're going to move into the YouTube. We're going to get into the camera. There we go. And take that on and do that there. And we're going to move this over to the side. Bang. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on Talk Live. Yes, indeed. So thank you very much. Yes, indeed. So we have everything. We have Instagram. We have YouTube. We have done it, ladies and gentlemen. We have cracked the code. Anyways, let's get into this on Talk Live here on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into day. This would be day. This is week 5, but this is considered day 25, 20. Let me see here. Into day 25, 26, around there. We're just going to confirm that. Day 24. This is day 24. So this is last Friday of the Diddy. Well, actually, this is last Thursday of the Diddy Trail. So we're going to do a little recap of Thursday, and then we're going to move into Friday since this can move so quickly since we are on TMZ. Shout out to TMZ, doing wonderful things in YouTube streets with Beckerman and Kaufman covering this on Diddy in court. So thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live. We are back. We are live. We are ready to go. Let's get into this right now.
Day 25 of the Diddy trial, and the woman known as Jane has finally finished her testimony after 6 days, 4 days on direct, a couple days of cross, a little bit of redirect.
So yeah, this is Friday, ladies and gentlemen. This is Friday.
For a long time,
actually,
today,
no, this
laid
is Thursday.
Out the various
Thursday and the Jane's
allegations
testimony
that she's made against Diddy. She was cross-examined on those allegations. They again sort of tore her apart a little bit. But the most interesting thing that came up is that Diddy's counsel really wanted to ask the court to compel this woman, Jane, to disclose the name of another extremely famous rapper who was present at least one freak off. This one happened in Las Vegas.
Yeah, this was fascinating. So as you mentioned, a lot of her testimony during the day was about more allegations of violence and abuse. I think they got a little bit closer, Jason, to be honest with you, on showing the level of force and coercion that was going on.
Yeah,
we can table that.
I didn't want to.
Let's table that. Let's talk about this incident that she testified about. She says she traveled with a rapper on a private jet. The rapper was close to Diddy, and this was in January 2024. And she went to Vegas with him. And at that event, She says that she watched Anton, who was one of the male entertainers who would participate
one
in
of the
freak
escorts
offs,
who
right?
who she had sex with previously.
Yes, Anton has sort of been involved in some of the hotel nights, as she calls it, but those are just their term for freak offs.
So Anton had sex with Jane while Diddy watched before. He's now in this hotel room, and she is there as well. Or in Vegas. They traveled to Vegas together.
That's
right.
right. So she's watching Anton have sex in a group setting. She is not having sex during this particular incident. He is having sex with another unnamed woman, but she is there with this very famous rapper and his wife. And she says that at the party, the very famous rapper came up to her and expressed how into her he was, that he had always wanted to have sex with her, sort of flattering her, hitting on her.
In front of his wife.
Unclear whether the wife was right next to him at this moment, but they were all sort of together at this event. So the wife was probably nearby, if not directly next to him.
I would not be surprised if this was T.I. and his wife, Tiny. I wouldn't be surprised. But again, it's an allegation. It's only allegation because he was into these things. He really was. Diddy wasn't the only one who enjoyed freak-offs. T.I. had a alleged penchant for said sexual interludes. Let's continue.
She says that she doesn't go on and say that they had sex or anything, but she did say that she flashed her breasts at this party at some point. This was also an incident in January 2024 that later, when she was with Diddy, he accused her of betrayal over that trip because this was a close friend of his. She went without Diddy to this, and Diddy was upset that, hey, you went to a freak off without even me involved. You're supposed to be my person to do freak offs with. I don't want you out there doing any old freak off.
So during this testimony, Diddy's lawyer, was it
Mark Agnifilo?
Oh, it was Agnifilo.
I believe it was Agnifilo.
Mark Agnifilo says to the judge, Your Honor, we want this witness to be able to name the rapper that she is describing. She makes him seem like he's extremely famous. He's there with his wife, also unnamed. And Agnifilo says, I want, because previously they had discussed that she was not to name this person. And he says, I think it's important that the jury hears who it is that she's describing.
Yeah, because it seems like the testimony over this incident is intended to convey the idea that Jane was someone interested in just being around celebrities for clout. Like she was out there. If it wasn't Diddy, it was another guy she wanted to glom onto who was very famous. And they're trying to paint a picture that this isn't a victim of some coercive relationship with Diddy. This is someone who likes to bang celebrities. Yes. And she goes off on private jets. And here's this other famous rapper she was with. And they wanted that impression to be left on the jury by naming this other famous rapper.
And I can see the argument, right? Because she is claiming to be a victim of Diddy's, that she was coerced into this relationship, that she didn't want to be a part of it. She was only having sex because he was paying her rent and doing all these other things, and she wanted to be around it. And they're trying to paint her out as, no, that's not just what you were about. You were quite literally a star effer, right?
That's right. This is who she is, and they want to show the jury. This is on Cross-X. They're trying to show the jury it's not just Diddy. She wasn't trapped in some relationship. She was out there gallivanting with other celebrities and doing the same thing. I do wonder, part of her testimony is that this famous rapper who's unnamed, and ultimately the judge said, no, I'm not going to drag other names of celebrities into this trial. That's not fair to them. There's not really enough evidence to bring someone else.
There's not
enough relevance. I apologize. Enough relevance to bring another name in. So they remained unnamed. But I'm not sure it sort of gets them all the way there because she testified that this guy hit on her, this other rapper, but she didn't say she had sex with him. She didn't say anything of that nature. She said she was at the party and did flash her breasts, but that's a far cry from the testimony she's given about her relationship with Diddy, which was filled with violence and drugs. It was very different.
But we have talked about throughout, you and I have, about how a lot of the testimony you've heard against Diddy doesn't necessarily go directly to his potentially illegal conduct. It's more about atmospherics. It's painting him as a monster and allowing the jury to draw inferences from that, which is not necessarily relevant to the exact criminal allegations, that he was also capable of these other things. So I think similarly what the defense wants to do here is allow the jury to draw inferences from the atmosphere, from who this woman is generally, that she can't be trusted, that she is not the kind of person that the prosecution can ground their case in, and the jury should look at her with a jaundiced eye and maybe not just cast her aside in terms of the how much credence they give to her testimony, but also maybe paint the entire prosecution's case with the same brush of kind of exaggeration and just, Diddy, they're not saying Diddy wasn't a sexual deviant,
Yes.
but so was Jane, and so was maybe Cassie. And Jane's willing to go to this party where people are having sex in front of her, and she's with this other person. She takes her breasts out and
Right.
flashes her breasts at the party. Like, this is also, they would say, a sexually deviant person, and maybe so is Cassie. And that's just a bunch of sexual deviants. There's not a crime here.
Right. And let's call it what it is. They're painting.
And that is again exactly how they wanted it to happen. The defense in this matter, and that is they wanted to show these women as being lustful, as wanting the freak offs, as being individuals who were like Diddy. It wasn't Diddy who was the only monster. The ladies were monsters in and of themselves. They had certain desires, they had certain wants that they wanted executed, and they did it through these freak offs. So again, that's why I said a lot of what Jane had to say would bleed into and the defense hopes would taint part of Cassie's testimony in the sense that both of these ladies told similar lines. It was stated in the prosecution's direct examination that when Cassie had formed her complaint, had filed her complaint against Diddy, and which she received $35 million, she saw a lot of Cassie's story in her, in Jane, a lot of the things that she went through uh, with Diddy, Cassie went through with Diddy. So it was a case of okay, both these ladies were having freak offs with Diddy pre Golden Age and post Golden Age, meaning that when their relationship was broken up or allegedly broken up, they had continued on with their relationship. They had continued on with the freak offs, with sleeping with each other, because again, both were drawn to power, both were drawn to celebrity, both wanted to be in the public eye. And to be fair, to Diddy in this instance. I mean, Cassie, when the well ran dry and she wasn't making net records anymore, and she was about to go on tour, she realized that hey, I have ammunition against Diddy that I can use against him as being this, this victim of Diddy's RICO RICO offenses, and with that, I can file a complaint civilly and get some money so that I can take care of myself and her now husband Alex Fine and her children well on into the future, so she doesn't have to work anymore, and they don't have to survive on Alex Fine's personal trainer salary. So it's to show. I mean, the defense are trying to show that indeed, Jane was very much like Cassie in the sense of they wanted celebrity, they wanted these freak offs, and as a result, they at the end of the day took advantage of Diddy, but not so much Jane because Jane is still in love with him. Jane is, I believe, still receiving bill payments from Diddy. So they took advantage of a situation and they got rich from it. And with Jane, it's a case of she wanted more of that. She wanted a relationship with Diddy when. Cassie after the relationship is over simply wanted money. So that is what the defense is insinuating in this instance, and that's what they want to paint Jane as. Not Jane as a victim, but Jane as a person who supported these freak offs and supported a lot of these RICO offenses because it got her closer to the celebrity she craved. Let's continue.
Painting her as a gold digger. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the terms of the relationship that even she's describing in her testimony is that Diddy was paying her rent. Some of the ways he would get her to continue to freak off, according to her, was that he threatened to cut off the rent, and so she would continue to participate. That's the kind of force that they're trying to establish. There were also actual physical violent events, but putting those to the side. So on redirect, what the prosecutors tried to do, because they knew that the defense was getting somewhere with painting her in this way and talking about this other celebrity rapper and so forth, and these incidents, it is going to stick in some jurors' minds that maybe this girl's just a gold digger. So on redirect, they asked her, do you have any financial stake in this case at all? Like, it's something that they know is on the jury's mind. She says, no, I'm not expecting any compensation. I'm testifying here because I was subpoenaed. And I think that's pretty effective as far as it goes. I think, unlike Cassie, who settled for an enormous sum of money, she filed that civil suit and then she settled for reportedly $20 million, where maybe that's a little bit of a stickier idea that she was sort of making a cash grab, although in the criminal context, she doesn't have anything to gain.
Right.
The prosecutors really want to emphasize that this woman on the stand really has nothing to gain by this testimony. Do you think that was effective in sort of resurrecting her on redirect?
Sure, I think there's an effectiveness to taking the money out of the equation, but I don't know if jurors. I think jurors get that, right? They get the fact that there's money to be made from this really famous guy, and I don't necessarily think that she's less credible or more credible depending on whether she has a monetary. No, if she had a monetary stake. I take it back. If she had a monetary stake, they could say this is all about money for her.
Right.
But so she's
So the
got to get
absence of-
out there that she doesn't. I guess that's important.
I guess that's right. I agree with you. I hear what you're saying. The fact that she lacks a monetary stake, though, now doesn't negate the fact that during the course of the relationship, she had a financial incentive to stay with him and so forth that is unrelated to violence and force. That is a transactional. We've talked about it. It sounds like much of their relationship, if you put aside some of these very violent episodes, and I think Diddy has to contend with those, and sort of the threats about sex tapes to the extent they exist, a lot of it was about, hey, I want a nice life. He got her bags. He would pay her rent. Those are ordinary, maybe not to regular people, transactional nature of a lot of relationships.
Going back.
And just to hold that for a second, you must realize that, I mean, I think Cassie was the key witness of the prosecution. She wanted to participate in this, in this, in this trial, in order to, you know, really put Diddy's feet to the fire with regards to her RICO charges, even though she did receive $35 million in terms of settlement. But Jane, she was truly subpoenaed. If she wasn't subpoenaed, I really don't think she would come of her own volition to testify against Diddy. She was forced to, but on behalf of the U.S. Attorney's Office, she testified. But they realized that, I think it was realized throughout her testimony that she wasn't exactly the best of witnesses because she wasn't exactly forthcoming with grief, with regret, with negative aspects of the relationship. She was quite positive about Diddy. She still believes in Diddy, still wanted to be there for Diddy, even when he was charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Diddy gave her a lifestyle that she never would have come to on her own. So again, she's only. I think she's I think she is a winnable examination by the defense in this instance because again, she was still willing to do free cuffs. She's still willing to be a part of Diddy's circle, and quite simply, she's not in terms. She does not want to incur wrath. Uh, uh, incur wrath or exactly, foist wrath upon Diddy in this instance because again, she's still in love with him. She still believes in him, and when all is said and done, she was subpoenaed to be here and not wanting to be here in and of itself. Let's continue.
Back to this very famous rapper. We don't know who it is. You and I have speculated offline who we think it might be.
Sure.
There's a lot of speculation online. All we know is this person is extremely famous, ran in these same circles, knows Diddy, and was with his wife. We know it's a married person.
Yeah, and the internet speculation is going to be rampant about this. The judge is trying to keep
Not just internet. You and I were speculating.
My guess, it's T.I. I'm just saying it may be just T.I., but he's done these things before. Again, but I could be wrong. It's an allegation. To be fair, let's continue.
That's right.
Just before we went on,
We're part of the internet writ large,
right?
Yeah. Look, you're not going to be able to keep a lid on this entirely. That's just the nature of the high-profile sort of setting that we're in. People are going to speculate. I think Judge Subramanian is doing a good job of saying we're not going to blast these names out in public, but he can't control it to any real extent. And people are the sleuths are out. They're going to try to figure this out. To a large extent, a lot of people think they've already figured it out. And there's no real way to control that. I don't think the judge has to control that, but he has to sort of make certain gestures in that direction.
So I just want to wrap up her testimony. She did talk about some serious violence that she allegedly suffered at Diddy's hands during the course of the relationship. I think this is a little bit different than what we've heard in the past. We heard some allusions to this, but today she really did describe this June 2024 fight that she had.
June 18th, 2024 is the date of incident in question here. Let's continue.
Really violent altercation. She claims that Diddy punched, choked, and slapped her multiple times. She tried escaping, hid outside, later returned home where more abuse followed, including being hit in the face. I think this is, it seems obvious, but really bad testimony for Diddy. Again, creating this unmitigated monster.
Yes. Even though his attorneys would say, yes, this was a man who was prone to violent outbursts in a sort of a domestic abuser context. But I thought about this a lot, and I want to hit you with it because we're now far along in this case. There's an awkwardness that this is a federal case.
Do remember you can comment on Instagram and YouTube. Want to hear your comments with regards to the recap with here, Beckerman and Kaufman. So do let me know how you feel on Instagram and YouTube. I will be able to see it all here on Talk Live. Let's continue.
There just is. And we talk about it all the time because it has to fit within, sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. It has to fit within a RICO case.
Not domestic violence and rape and these other things that you see in state court prosecution.
That's right. And as a state court prosecution of just a straight domestic abuse, a sort of aggravated assault, these are pretty easy. I mean, if you find these witnesses credible, it would be, your mileage may vary on whether you believe all of these stories, but there's a lot of them and there's a lot of smoke there. But there's this constant awkwardness of the fit of this case given the facts that they have and they're able to present, because he's clearly a monster. And I think most people are coming away with, wow, this guy's very violent. But the elements of that case, even in these domestic violence episodes, which are horrible to hear, and I'm sure they are sticking with the jury, do they relate to forcing someone into sex trafficking? That's always been the nexus that is hardest for the prosecution to connect. I do think they get there when they say he was threatening to release sex tapes. He said either get on your job and get with this male entertainer or I cut off the rent. I think those things are closer, but the violence does seem not prejudicial to Diddy, but it doesn't necessarily seem connected in the same way to me.
So
good points raised there. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help Diddy, the fact that he was violent towards both Jane and Cassie and many others within the trial here. Diddy was one who was prone to violence, and it doesn't help him at all. It only paints a bad picture for him. However, yeah, it is hard to draw the linkage, draw the line between these beatings and her and these victims being participating in sex trafficking. It's going to be much more difficult. If again they were coerced to participate in these things, then absolutely. But again, these could be seen as just incidents of domestic violence to which Diddy should not be participating in the first place. No one should. But it paints him in a bad light. But does it lead it to sex trafficking? Probably not. Let's continue.
The only thing I would say, because I agree with what you're saying, is that I think what the prosecution is trying to accomplish here is to get the jury to hate him so much that they might overlook the fact that there isn't sort of an overwhelming amount of evidence to show the particular elements of the crimes for which he's accused. Now, there's enough evidence there that they do have things to hang their hat on. If there wasn't any evidence that he had committed the various elements, then the judge would toss it on his own.
Right. This would be unfair if there were no nexus.
Right. But they've established enough of it to give the jury something to hang their hat on, and the prosecution is hoping, which is why it's so much cumulative evidence about how horrific he could be, that to say, if you're an individual juror, you and I were on that juror, the idea of letting him go free after hearing what we've heard, it would just seem like that would rankle me big time.
Yeah, and that's sort of the point. The cumulative nature of this onslaught of evidence is the point. That's the way they need to present this case, and I think they're doing it pretty effectively.
And also, is my last point, it's not like a situation where this is all in the past and he's committed these horrible acts, but he's a changed man. This was happening very recently. Jane has testified this was happening in 2021, all the way into 2024. They had this fight.
Yes.
This is not a man, Diddy. I think the jury could not walk away with it. If we let him go free, he'll be a changed man and he'll go on. He's an old man now. He'll go and do whatever. No, it would seem he'll go back to his freaking off ways. I mean, that would be my suspicion.
It's a big concern, right? This is not distant past for him. This is how he was behaving even after he was being investigated. So this is a type of person they're trying to set up as he needs to be removed from society. He's a danger.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it is problematic for Diddy to have these bouts of violence even into 2024. That was June 18, 2024, literally a year ago. Diddy is not doing himself any favors by being violent well into his 50s and saying that he's a changed man, that he's changed his ways. No, at the end of the day, he got caught, doing things that that a lot of people do. However, when it involves a lot of let's go back to it, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the RICO predicate offenses, using bribery, using theft, using fraud, using coercion, extortion, arson, robbery, a lot of these predicate offenses in order for them to get. And then going back to these witnesses, that we see here. The kidnapping with Capricorn Card, Cassie Ventura, arson, you see the names. Bribery, you see the names. Witness tampering, you see the names. Forced labor, see the names. Sex trafficking, see the names. Prostitution, you see the names here. Drug distribution, you see the names here. This is not good because this is just a piling on of a pattern of behavior, piling on of evidence of pattern of behavior that Diddy really what is a danger to society. It may be a danger to society, and through his lust for free calls and his want for to do whatever it takes to get these free calls, including resorting to violence to do it. It may not be so coercive in the case of Jane, but in many others it is. And it is this mountain of evidence that we're seeing here that is really putting Diddy in a pickle. And we'll go back to this is courtesy of Nate the lawyer. Shout out to him doing wonderful things to YouTube streets. And let's get back to TMZ Live. Fair use, fair use, fair use. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTLK.com. Let me hear your comments here on IG and YouTube, either now or before or after the show. Let's continue.
Right.
Let's go to some comments and questions. Melanie Blair says Diddy is done. DONE.
Just to let you know, if you like hockey, it looks like the cup is not coming home. Florida Panthers have again won the Stanley Cup for a second year in a row, beating the Edmonton Oilers for that second year in a row. And the cup wait continues for now into its 34th year. Last time was 1992 with you can name who it was who won the Stanley Cup in 1992. I do know. A special year. Anyways, let's continue.
I'm not entirely sure, and I want to wait for the defense to present their case in chief. I think things will feel different when they're on the offensive and not just playing catch up on cross-examination. But do I agree with you in general? I do at this point. And I think Jason would probably agree.
I do. And actually, interesting point by Tyson Lazarus. He says, I don't think there's a need for these last two witnesses. They should have filed as domestic from long ago. So I think the point
That's
is,
what we were saying.
Why not? Why did we miss these opportunities over the years? The real reason is because Cassie came forward and made this, with this tape. And I mean, it got released. We think it was probably Cassie, but it might have been the hotel who had it that released this video. And all of a sudden the feds sort of sunk their teeth into it. But it seems to be a stronger domestic violence case than anything else. You do have some statute of limitations.
That's the big problem. Some of those things go way back.
Violence that that do go way back. I don't know. You couldn't bring the claim based in the Cassie video. So they're getting sort of more recent crimes, this pattern of racketeering that's gone on for years, and all these various alleged crimes, the Cassie beating. They're just more evidence of the racketeering that's taken place over time. That's why you need the federal charges.
I think that's right. Classy says the government should have kept her off the stand. This is an interesting take.
We talked about this yesterday.
Yeah,
a couple days ago. Yeah.
I take the comment. Has Jane been an overall effective witness for this prosecution? I am not so sure. My take is similar to yours. I think she has sort of dampened some of the strength of the Cassie testimony by being presented as basically the second best version. Best, I put in quotes, not good, but second best witness that they have to explain that Diddy's a monster, because I think her case is much more complicated. Cassie's was complicated because it was an 11-year relationship and had its own ups and downs. This one is complicated because it seems largely consensual in large swaths.
Right.
Indeed, and that is the truth. I said it myself that this was not the best of witnesses for the prosecution. I thought that Jane, along with Brianna Bongalon, could have won a lot of points back for the defense in this instance, because I think she participated in these free calls freely. I think this was a transactional relationship. She knew what would happen going into it. She went in wide open, and she participated in these things. Again, nobody wants to be a victim of domestic violence. Absolutely not. However, to be fair, Diddy, Diddy knew what it was. This was not a relationship the way Cassie's was. She was his number one. He was he considered her number one to everyone, and Lord knows he took it on. Allegedly took it on a few people, including Kid Cudi. However, who looked saw an opportunity to start a relationship with Cassie, and Diddy showed his jealous side and allegedly carried out certain things against these individuals, including Kid Cudi, that which is widely documented and publicized. But in this instance, in this instance, Jane was largely participatory, largely knew of the transactional relationship between the two persons, enjoyed her rent being paid, enjoyed the trips, enjoyed the trinkets and baubles of a lavish lifestyle, and is still devoted to Diddy to this day. The only reason why she did participate was through subpoena. However, it was to show a certain pattern of behavior of Diddy. The June 18, 2024 domestic violence incident did not exactly help Diddy in any way. But again, this was a largely consensual relationship and something that the defense could win brownie points on. Let's continue.
With punctuated by violence. So it is complicated.
I love Bobby's question. Why can't they say who the rapper is? It's just simply because the judge has determined that there's no real relevance to the identity of the rapper and the harm that would come to that person potentially by having them dragged through the mud. The judge
needlessly embarrassing.
Needlessly embarrassing. The judge has a greater obligation than just to this case, and certainly to our prurient interest. We'd all love to know. But the judge has an obligation to society writ large to protect people's names to the extent they're not specifically relevant to the case, and that's what's happening here.
All right, let's go.
The judge is doing a good job in terms of keeping their names out of such public places. And to be fair, my guess is allegedly. I say allegedly because it's been done before. Allegedly, it's T.I. and Tiny. However, you can speculate as to how you want to speculate, but again, these are all allegations. This is not true, not based in fact. So please do not take this to the bank in any way, shape, or form. Let's continue.
Go to Carter. What does the phrase "behind the bar" mean?
Double entendre, Carter.
Okay, we're gonna leave it there as they answer the behind the bar segment here. We're gonna move on to that was Friday, and we're gonna move on to no, actually that was Thursday. Thursday was it Thursday? No, actually it was yeah. That was Friday. That was indeed Friday. I'm just trying to get my names and dates correct here. I believe that 5 days ago. 5 days ago, today being Tuesday, I would say that was Friday that cross-examination happened. So again, we are back to, I believe it is Monday here. So this would be Monday, and we're catching up with Diddy in court through TMZ and behind the bar. So let's get into it.
Day 26 of the Diddy trial, and we had an unexpected visitor today.
Yeah, celebrity visitor.
Kanye West showed up at the trial. Now, I guess he wanted to get into the main jury room. He said he wanted to support Diddy. Wore all white, I guess, sort of a
little nod to the white parties,
to the
right?
white parties. But he wasn't allowed into the main courthouse. He had to go into the overflow room, the ante room, where he was allowed to sit. He stayed for about 10 minutes or something, and then he took off.
Yeah, it was sort of a bizarre scene. So he's a huge celebrity. Whether you like Kanye or not, he's become a very controversial figure. But him showing up is a big deal. So he gets out of the car. He's in the all white. He's got the shades on. He sort of daps up one of Diddy's sons outside. He's asked whether he's there for supporting Diddy. He does say yes. But that's as communicative as you get out of Kanye. He then walks into the courtroom, went into this overflow room. But I think the entire purpose of him being there was as a show of support to Diddy, his friend. He wanted Diddy to see him in the gallery. He wasn't able to do so. And then he's sitting in an overflow room with a bunch of journalists and other onlookers. And he says,
"What am I doing here?
This isn't for me." So he leaves.
So I find this incredibly fascinating because yesterday we heard testimony from Jane, this woman.
So again, Diddy showed up to trial. Diddy showed up to the Diddy trial. One of the few celebrities, very few celebrities. I don't think there's any other celebrity to the largesse of Diddy, to the largesse of Ye, to the largesse of to the prominence and reverence, be it as it may, that Kanye West has, that Ye has, for showing up to the COVID room. And again, this could be seen as promotion simply because, again, Ye is promoting a new album, to be fair. Okay, let's give it a balanced view. But again, he is there to support his friend. He doesn't have to be there. Literally doesn't have to be there. And so for Ye to show his support, it is quite Well, it's quite good of him to do so. However, again, you take it as you find it, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, Kanye West was indeed there. So you saw it right here on Talk Talk Live. If you haven't seen it before, I'm sure you have. If you're following this trial, let's continue.
Testifying under the name Jane, who says she was at freak offs, she participated in a lot of freak offs with Diddy, but also went as an onlooker to another freak off in Vegas. Diddy wasn't there. We talked all about that
with a big celebrity rapper,
and that person's wife in the last couple of years. Now, there is no evidence that we know of that big celebrity rapper was Kanye, but the Twitterverse was crazy. Everybody was identifying, speculating, rumor mongering that it was Diddy. That it was Kanye.
Yes.
For Kanye, then the very next day to show up in court, it's like, wow, he's either unaware of it or doesn't care, or I guess the third thing is leaning into it.
Yeah, it almost seems like this was a lot of speculation out there. As you said, there's no evidence directly linking it, but the news of her testimony about going to this this celebrity rapper, unnamed rapper's freak off happened at the end of the day. Court is closed, and then the next time court opens, Kanye's there to walk in. So the timing's very, very conspicuous. Obviously, people are going to try to connect those dots.
Yeah.
There's no evidence.
He's a man who is.
I don't think it's Kanye at all. Kanye was not one to participate in these sort of freak offs at all. There weren't any real allegations against him at all. I don't think Kanye's not one to. He may have gone to a white party. I don't think he was one of the participants in the freak offs in and of itself. Rumors weren't to that effect. I don't think, and one can speculate, but I really think there's no truth to it at all. Let's continue.
Always acutely aware of public perception of him, right? He is somebody who follows the news, takes great umbrage at what people say about him online, is kind of defiant, and picks fights with people you've never heard of online. He's one of these people who's, again, very aware of what people are saying about him. So I got to think that maybe he was aware of the rumor mill and didn't care or leaned into it.
And remember, I don't want to be too conspiratorial minded about this, but remember, Diddy's attorneys wanted the name of that rapper to be mentioned, right? And they were turned down. The Judge Subramanian said, the relevance of this isn't high enough for the potential embarrassment. I'm going to just allow this story in under the name of unnamed rapper. Do you think there's any possibility, given that Kanye is a friend of Diddy, Diddy's side wanted the name out, that if the speculation is accurate, and we don't know it to be, that they said, hey, we want people to connect these dots. Could you show up tomorrow? What do you think of that?
Well, I think that makes sense from Diddy's point of view, but how does it make sense from Kanye's point of view? Unless he
likes it.
Look, Kanye has not been shy about the fact that he has I don't even know what to call it, a hypersexual relationship with Bianca. Maybe this is it's totally, maybe you're right.
Part of this kink is cool.
We are just speculating.
We are speculating.
We are off in our little flight of fancy here.
Yes.
But Kanye probably, if he was part of these things, probably would say, yeah, this is what I'd like to do.
Yeah, and in that story,
it's normal.
The rapper did nothing wrong. He said, I'm into you, Jane, but it's not as if there's any
no
sort of incriminating about
coercion or anything like that.
That's right. So that presence, I could see someone like Kanye, and again, we are just speculating, saying, that's kind of cool. Sure, I'll do that. I'll show up. It's a cool story about watching a live sex show.
So let's transition from what we speculate may have been the case to something we know was the case, which is we had another witness testifying on the stand today about these freak offs and the cleanup work, and there was actually pretty good nuggets. This is not just cumulative. There were some new facts that came out that are pretty interesting.
That's right. So this is Jonathan Perez. He's a guy who worked for Diddy as a personal assistant from December 2021 to September 2024. So late period personal assistant. He said, Diddy usually
this is right up to Diddy was arrested.
That's right.
He worked right up until the day he was
until the bitter end.
He was basically his assistant when he got arrested.
That's right. And you'll notice this overlaps with the period of the relationship between Diddy and Jane.
Right.
The testimony. This is post Cassie. He said, Diddy usually had 3 or 4 personal assistants working for him at any given time. He did get an immunity order. He pled the 5th, but then he was offered immunity and then had to testify. What he said was he set up something that he called King Nights. This is now the 3rd term that we've heard. The government has called it freak offs. Jane testified that these were called hotel nights. and these were something he referred to as king nights. They're all the freak offs. And he said it involved a lot of prep. He would set up the rooms, bring the food, the liquor, the music, the red lights, the condoms, the lubricant, and occasionally honey. So people really fixated on this inclusion of honey. Apparently, it was there to enhance a man's libido. I found some of this testimony just sort
Was
of
it actual
kink-shaming.
honey, or was that sort of a
Honey.
there's no, like, that's not a euphemism for something, right?
Oh, no. I think it's actual
That-
honey,
it's
and
actual-
it's maybe
okay.
somewhat
I
connected
thought it was like a
to...
Spanish fly sort of thing that they called honey. You know, they brought it into these freak offs. Yeah.
His testimony was that he had to set these rooms up for 12 to 24 hours of supplies, almost like these freak off scenarios were bunkers, where the marathon sessions that went on within these sessions, you just needed supplies. You needed honey, you needed a lot of things, liquor, and so forth. But what I found most interesting, and I do think that kind of testimony falls into the category of just making Diddy look like a creepy pervert or someone with a kink or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't think it gets you too far setting up a room. 2 points did stand out. He did say that one of the most important things was cleaning up after these nights. There would be oil all over their hotel room. We've heard
Let's
similar
not describe
testimony.
what would be all over the hotel.
Right.
We can all imagine what might have been there.
Right, but apparently you were entrusted as the assistant to clean up everything so there wasn't a trace.
Because that's what they were really afraid of.
what
And
happened.
they've talked about this, and we've had other witnesses who have talked about cleaning up, and they said that the real concern that Diddy had was that hotel staff or whomever would come in afterwards and find the remnants of the freak offs, and therefore have a story to tell to the press, to the gossip, whatever it is.
Right.
And they wanted to snuff that out by having really thorough cleaning up.
And again, this is not cleaning up something that was illegal. It's cleaning up something that might have been
Embarrassing,
embarrassing to
right,
Diddy.
right.
So I'm not sure it sort of connects in that way, but the prosecutors sure do like this kind of testimony because it sounds like he was aware that it was off in
Yeah.
some way and wanted to clean up their remnants. The other really interesting point is because his period of employment overlaps exactly almost with Jane's relationship with Diddy, he saw Jane a lot. He says he would help her choose lingerie, heels, dresses, that she trusted his opinion on what to buy. And he said that Jane, the person who just testified about feeling coerced and forced into a lot of these freak offs, never seemed upset or unhappy after one of these king nights. I think this is excellent testimony for the defense because Jane was up there. She was compelling in some ways. She talked about the violence. She talked about threats to cut off her rent payments. But now you have someone who is a third party who's seemingly disinterested and doesn't have a bias or an axe to grind and says, she never looked that way to me.
Right.
So that tells the jury that maybe she didn't look that way to Diddy either.
Right.
So again, another prosecution witness in which the defense could take a lot of points from, and would help their case because as he testified, Johnny Perez, Diddy assistant, he would be there to set off the freak off, the king nights, these events, these sexual events. However, and also he would help with the wardrobe of Jane. The fact of the matter is, Jane was not accepted during the was not affected during these nights. She didn't appear apprehensive on these nights. She wanted to participate on these nights, and for that, this is another piece of ammunition for Diddy in the sense that these were consenting adults who were participating in these acts, and so Diddy was not acting in with any predicate offense whatsoever in order to make him into the hub of a RICO case. So another another prosecution witness that the defense could use for ammunition for their case, and I don't think should have been presentable to the jury. Maybe it was to show a pattern of behavior of Diddy in this instance, but to be fair, the defense are winning a lot of points on these latter witnesses that we have here. Again, their key witness was a lot of their heavy hitters came on for the prosecution in terms of witnesses came out there first with Cassie. Let's go back here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do a little review here. A lot of the heavy hitter. Let's go back here for a second. Bear with me one moment. Yeah. So a lot of these people, such as Israel Flores, Daniel Phillip, Don Richard, Danny Kane, Kerry Morgan, Cassie's friend, Cassie herself, David Jones, the clinical psychologist, that is Dawn Hughes. A lot of these individuals, George Kaplan, Capricorn Clark, Deontay Nash, Mia, A lot of these witnesses were very much prosecution witnesses, in which they most of their case was based off of. A lot of these latter witnesses that we have here now, including Brianna Bongalon, Jane, Johnny Perez, they could have been done without. And this could have been made a lot simpler and sharper case. But again, this is sort of a piling on. But this is not as substantial in terms of evidence for the prosecution as it would. And again, I think this is giving the defense a bit of a leg up in terms of presenting their case, because a lot of these witnesses here are showing indeed that these witnesses are showing the opportunist their the opportunism of them participating in these freak offs, being in the orbit of Diddy, or also um, just participating in the freak offs, being consensual adults participating in transactional relationships. Let's continue.
Right. Yeah, interesting. I mean, again, these are little tidbits. You never know how they're going to land on the jury. I can't stop thinking about the fact that, like, can you imagine? I'm about the same age as Diddy. If somebody would have said to me, "We're going to set up a 24-hour sex fest," I'd be like, "I'm good.
I'm exhausted. I don't roll that way. I need a sandwich and to go to bed afterwards. Like, I can't imagine.
Boy, I took an inch and you took the mile.
But yeah, so how do you think that someone else saying,
Yeah.
I didn't see her as looking coerced or forced in any way, she seemed enthusiastic to me, that hits in some way that Diddy might have also seen the same kind of enthusiasm?
Yeah, I think. Look, again, you don't know what the jury's going to pick up. You don't know what's true. Also,
You don't.
like, this is, but whatever. I mean, these are little facts. Diddy has some ground they need to make up. Their side has some ground to make up. Maybe this does a little bit for them. I don't really think it matters that much. The real essence of this case is what happened to Cassie. Jane is just, again, it's just we're compiling evidence to create this atmosphere that Diddy was this sexually deviant monster. And this, I think, probably tends to that. But at the same time, I don't think Jane, on balance, I know there's been some allegations of some abuse, some physical violence. On balance, you don't have nearly the sort of horrific testimony that you heard from Cassie.
I think that's right. And I don't think the prosecutors are pinning their case entirely on Jane. They led with Cassie. They, as they presented witnesses, they're probably going with their strongest first, and they led with Cassie. They knew that would be the most compelling type of testimony. Now they have Jane, apparently the third unnamed victim in the case, who was going to testify but then was MIA, is not going to testify. The prosecutors have backed off trying to compel this or subpoena or actually go track this person down. So it seems like they're wrapping up the sex trafficking portion of the case. Maybe they'll have a little more in RICO. Some of the other testimony was what they seized in the raids, which a cache of weapons, some of them with the sanded off serial numbers. That, I think, goes to the RICO operation sort of elements, and some of the lube maybe goes to the sex trafficking. Listen, I think that kind of testimony, people get it at this point. He had a lot of stuff. It doesn't really prove that he was committing a crime, but it does look like he had a lot of weird stuff.
We have one more.
So again, as I just said on Talk Live, I think the basis of the prosecution's case was made within the first few witnesses. I would say the first 10 to 12 witnesses really made the basis of their case. From there, it's been a devolution in terms of the you know effectiveness of all these witnesses here. I think as we get into Brian, I think let's going back to my notes here. I think for I would say from Mia on from Mia was, I think, the last real hard serious witness for the prosecution. I think from there, as you go into Eddie Garcia, Brianna Bongalon, Jane, Johnny Perez, I think this is a way for the defense to get back in the case, but they're not really, uh, you know, as thought provoking and as well evidence bearing in terms of witnesses as were the previous individuals in this case. And so we are I think reaching the end of the prosecution case, unless they bring on Chris. I think the last bombshell, I would say, for the prosecution will try to bring forward is Christina Coram under subpoena. I have no doubt that they would probably try to bring her on just to slam the message home that Diddy was indeed the head of a criminal organization here, and that remains to be seen, of course. But I think the prosecution is indeed winding down their case. To be fair, let's continue.
Or bit from this testimony, from today's testimony to talk about it, with today's court proceedings to talk about. I did want to.
And just to let you know, Talk Live on Instagram. I'm gonna try and get it rebooted here, but again, if it does end, you can all come over to YouTube, but I will try to get it rebooted on Instagram. But the show will continue on Talk Live, live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Sponsored by Dunk Talk. Into the second hour. Let's continue.
Jump in with Dana's comment. She says we're all wrong. These are honey packs. She believes it's called Vital Honey, and mentioned in Kanye's lawsuit from Lauren Pisciotta, one of the.
I remember that lawsuit.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. His former personal assistant, and so I guess these are little controlled honey packs for energy, like much.
Oh,
like,
so they're fortified in some way, or they're
no,
just pure honey?
My guess is that they're pure honey, but I was picturing sort of a honey bear that you would open the top and squeeze in your mouth, or something like this. This is clearly.
Now we know what Jason does for energy.
This is clearly like those gel packs you have as
Yes.
a runner or whatever it is. I'm guessing.
Listen,
thank you, Dana. If you're right, then thank you very much.
Yeah.
That is that's edifying to us. Last thing we want to talk about. Juror number 6 is a problem in this case. Juror number 6 has been, I guess, there was somebody who overheard, one of the court staff had overheard that juror number 6 no longer lived in the district in which they lived when the case started. Obviously, the jury of the peers is supposed to all be from the Southern District of New York. This person actually has now moved to, I believe, Brooklyn.
to Jersey.
To Jersey, sorry, which is not in the Southern District of New York, obviously. And so the defense was trying to get this person removed.
The prosecution is trying to get this person
okay.
removed, and that's what's interesting. So, look, the residency requirement matters because, as you said, you're entitled to a jury of your peers. They should be from the Southern District of New York. But seizing on this after 3 weeks of trial, the prosecutors are saying, look, this person hasn't been totally candid with the court, and we want to get this. They have to be removed from the jury. The defense is saying, come on. I mean, why do you really want this person off? Is it really the residency requirement that you're seizing on? The defense has made arguments that this is a black male juror who you don't want for some reason on this jury, and you've now pretextually seized on this residency requirement, which is a real one. I don't want to dismiss it, but we're 3 weeks into the case. If he moved, is it that big of a deal?
Regardless of the, obviously the prosecutors want this person removed for a reason. If this person, if they felt this was a great juror for them, they would not want this person removed, regardless of the residency requirement. So let's just scrape off the patina of any sort of residency requirements. No, they want him off because they don't think he's a good juror for them.
That's right. And that is what the defense team is pouncing on. And they made these arguments to Judge Subramanian, who was inclined to just say, oh, if he doesn't satisfy the residency requirements, I do have to dismiss him. That's what we have alternates for. We'll slot one in. But then when he heard these arguments, he said, I am leaning towards just dismissing this juror and putting an alternate, but I will take this under submission because those are serious allegations. And you don't want to just remove jurors willy-nilly based on the prosecution raising something arguably pretextual, right?
I to be quite honest with you, I don't know procedurally in federal court whether or not somebody who leaves the district during the pendency of the trial necessarily excludes them from the opportunity to serve on the jury. I would think it would. You have to be in the district in order to serve, but maybe not. Maybe there's got to be some sort of federal rule in place. That's why Subramanian, I'm sure, wanted to go back and take a look at the legalities of this and have his clerks do a little research.
Yeah, he's a very careful judge, and I think he will apply the letter of the law. And if there is a true residency requirement that you can't leave the district, I think he will replace it with an alternate. But it's interesting to hear that the defense thinks you guys are playing games. There's a reason you've noticed his demeanor, perhaps. Maybe you've seen the way he's been responding to testimony, and you saw a way to get a juror off who you think might disrupt your case. I thought it was interesting.
So,
very good points raised there by Beckerman and Kaufman. Yeah, it's that is something. I mean, again, it is once again good lawyering on the part of the prosecution. If you can get a taciturn, a witness that is you consider adverse to your case off the jury so you can get an alternate in who may see your side of things, you want to take that chance. It's sort of like when the defense wanted to go into a motion for a mistrial due to the fact that due to the Molotov cocktail allegations made by the prosecution, even though there was no evidence of a Molotov cocktail. So again, they're using these sort of legal angles in order to forward their case. However, I suspect that the judge will allow, unless it's blatantly through legal research to be found that once you're out of a jurisdiction, you can't serve on the jury. If that's the case, then they'll have to enforce the rule. But I think it'll have to be so concrete as to allow for such a for such an action to happen. However, yeah, that remains to be seen. I think the judge may just be leaning on this rule since the jury has been here for the whole 3 weeks. But that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens going forward. Let's continue.
When Enhanced Creators actually asked this question, when a juror is dismissed, are they replaced by a backup? Yes, they have 6 alternates, I believe,
That's
in
right.
this case, ready to go. They're listening to all of the testimony, and they will just be slotted in. You will not miss a beat. The time that it can really be problematic is when a juror is dismissed after jury deliberations have started. Because what happens when that happens, the person is slotted in, but jury deliberations, which in many cases, including I suspect in this one, can last many days, if not weeks, has to start afresh. You've got to start with day one of discussions, going through all of the evidence again, and that can be really disruptive. Here, they will slot that person in from
It's exciting for that alternate. I've been an alternate juror, and you just sit there. You have to follow it closely, but you have no power. You're never going to deliberate, and then you get called into the big show. It's like being called up to the major leagues.
Excellent points raised there by Beckerman and Kaufman, and yeah, indeed, they all jury by trial. I mean, jury by trial by jury. Sorry, not jury by trial. Trial by jury. All have alternates ready to go who have followed the case going forward and who can be subbed in once a jurist has been ruled out of contention to be a jurist going forward. So again, well said there by Beckerman and Kaufman. A little legalese there. Let's as they are providing in good standing. Let's continue.
Let's go with Bezo Lego's comment says Kanye definitely showed up for the attention and left, just like the Grammys.
I think there might be a point there.
Listen, I mean that we know Kanye.
Yeah.
Kanye was selling an album, ladies and gentlemen. His new album is coming out. I think it's Bully. His new album, Bully, is coming out very, very soon. So this is promotion, ladies and gentlemen. There's no such thing as bad publicity, right? So we're gonna leave it there, and we're gonna move on to the last of the Behind the Bar series. Let me just do a reboot here and make sure that we are good to go here. Hold on, just a second. Here we go, and let me see if we are good to go here going forward. No. Yeah. So we're gonna go into. I believe this is Monday. What we heard from was last Friday with Kanye West entering the courthouse. Now we are heading into Monday and what happened yesterday in terms of the freak off video shown in court by Diddy, and let's get into that right now here on TMZ Live. TMZ Live, so to say, Diddy in court, and yes, indeed, Behind the Bar series. Let's continue.
So that the people in the gallery, lots happening in court. The biggest event that happened today in court is that for the first time, jurors got to actually witness videos from the freak-offs. They witnessed it in open court. They had headphones on so that the people in the gallery, the assembled media, could not see the video or hear the video, but it clearly had an impact on the jury.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people have been waiting for this moment. We've heard a lot of testimony about what these freak-offs looked like, but, a picture paints 1,000 words, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words, and the jury has finally seen some moving footage. They've seen still images, they've heard audio recordings, and they've heard those witness testimony, but they were putting on headphones. This was out of view of the gallery, and it wasn't at counsel's table because those screens at counsel's table can be seen by the gallery.
Clearly, what happens is they would have gone into the back. So it was 2 minutes worth of video that they saw.
2 minutes worth of footage from 3 different dates: October 2012, October 2014, and December 2014. About in the aggregate 2 minutes of footage.
And so what would have happened was they would have had a sort of negotiation where the defense would have tried to say that we should see less of this video. The prosecution would have wanted more. They would have found few incidents that were exemplars of the overall sort of videos of the freak-off videos that they had, and they would have agreed to show the jury exactly this 2 minutes. This would have been discussed. The court reporter would have been there for this in case it goes up on appeal, but nevertheless, The press was not alerted to it. Nobody else knows about these back room negotiations. Instead, it would have come to a head. They would have released this 2 minutes, but just to the members of the jury.
That's right. So all the jurors, the judge, the witnesses, and all the involved parties who are allowed to see these videos put on these headphones, and they were shown. And the gallery was still present while this was happening in court. So people have reported on the reactions of the jurors in particular while they were watching this. Some were neutral or stone-faced, but one female juror was reported to have covered her eyes with her hand, a reaction that she had sort of displayed maybe earlier during some testimony, because what she was witnessing was not to her liking, sort of shocked in some way.
I'm
Not good for Diddy, to be fair, if you're getting somebody not being sickened by what she saw, that being a juror. Let's continue.
surprised, frankly, only one of the 12 was witnessed to have covered her eyes during this.
Another juror, they said, winced.
Yeah, another winced, right? From everything that we've heard, the descriptions of these, the little bit of video that's leaked out, is some pretty graphic stuff. And the fact that these jurors are now being subjected to this. During voir dire at the beginning of the trial, they were asked whether or not they would be willing to sit through this kind of thing. They got this far because they said that they could look at it maturely.
Yeah, you're right. Defense counsel was saying, look, this case is going to have lots of allegations. This was during voir dire. Are you going to be able to handle sort of graphic images of this type? To your point, the defense is probably saying, look, these videos don't show violence. The Cassie video of the hotel beating is one thing. That's highly sort of probative as to whether he was forcing her into the freak-offs. When you're just showing sex videos, I would imagine the argument's pretty strong on the defense side to say, well, this doesn't show anything non-consensual. This shows a freak-off, but how is this helpful and not just inflammatory to Diddy?
Yeah, I think I hear the point. I think at some point you got to allow the jury to actually know what it is they've been told about all this time. Because, you can imagine that all of them have very different images of what's going on in these videos in their minds, and how much description has been given by Cassie and Jane and others. They still want to know what they look like, and just the fact that Diddy was actually recording them. It seems that he was not doing it quietly. Everybody knew they were being recorded.
Yeah,
but nevertheless, the fact he was recording them and the graphic nature of the videos. I think the jury has a right to see that.
I think you're right. The other point I would say, if defense was pushing back on this, was part of the allegations are that he recorded these as a means of embarrassing the participants and threatening them to be released. So you want the jury to see what was so embarrassing.
Oh, good point.
They have earned the right to maybe see how this could pressure an individual, and seeing with their own eyes what the nature of the freak-offs look like could bolster the credibility of Cassie's testimony that she really didn't want these things out, and that's why she continued to participate in them. A very interesting day. I don't think any of these will leak. It's serious, a serious matter, and I think the jurors will take this quite seriously.
There was one thing
of serious, as I was saying, this is something that the defense definitely wants to see less of, and the prosecution wants to see more of, because again, this is a extreme look at some of the debauchery that Diddy was participating in during these freak-offs, and it only cast him in a bad light, along with the domestic abuse allegations. And it is, despite the fact that many of these people may have been consenting adults, a lot of those on the jury would not believe in this way of life, would not believe in this sort of swinging / lifestyle event, and they may take umbrage to it. They may take they may not like what they see, as did one of the jury. So it is something that can cast a dark cloud over Diddy in this instance, that he was participating in these things, and he was filming these things for the fact of predicate offenses like coercion, like racketeering, to be used on many individuals who were participating in these freak-offs. So again, this is another way in which the prosecution is showing a predicate offense as stated, and really showing Diddy in a bad light, and being the hub or being the head of a criminal organization. Even though many of these freak-offs were quite consensual from all participants, but the fact that they were being filmed was not exactly consensual in and of itself, and that's something that brings to bear the RICO predicate offenses. Let's continue.
I wanted to hit on, you just touched, I saw it in our notes before we came on. I can't remember exactly what was said, but talking about these videos being used to extort these women, to basically keep them in Diddy's fold, not let them leave, else they would be released to loved ones of the women. Jane testified to that as well. Or there's some text messages between Jane and
Christina
Diddy.
Quorum.
Was it Christina? I thought it was Diddy, but Christina Quorum was able to look at these.
That might be right.
Anyway,
That might be right. Yes.
But Jane came forward. This woman Jane, we heard about all last week, and she testified, or she had written text messages saying basically, no, you're right. It was to Christine Quorum. She's saying Diddy is threatening me. That's right. She said Diddy is threatening me that if I don't do his bidding, he's going to leak this publicly. So we're sort of confirming what it is that Cassie had testified Diddy was doing.
That's right. And this is a good time to bring up how all of these text messages were introduced today. There was something called a summary witness. And what that means is the volume of documents that were produced in this case are extensive. And during witness testimony, you are often getting the person who sent the text message to authenticate this text exchange. And they did a lot of that during the witness testimony, but they didn't do all of it. And they still have exhibits that they want the jury to go back and deliberate upon. So you bring in a summary witness who's someone who just summarizes a big set of data and is authorized to explain what these text messages say. They're not a party to the case. It's usually a paralegal or someone like that, but they've examined the full sort of extent of the record, and they're allowed to present those to the jury. Now, they're not an expert witness. They don't offer any opinions about what the documents mean. They don't tell you about their feelings. This is not as if Jane was saying how she felt while she sent a text message. They simply are there to offer a back and forth and say, this is a text message that was produced during discovery. Here it is.
It's the exact same thing as the prosecution did when they submitted the videos to the juror, right? This is a summary and examples of what the larger body of evidence showed. Again, it's negotiated in the back with the defense wanting a certain type of summary testimony to come in, the prosecution insisting on other, the judge brokering that negotiation. So the jury is now given a 2 minutes worth of videos of the free costs, as well as testimony from a paralegal within the prosecutor's office testifying to the summary of the text messages and the emails.
That's right. And this stuff can be less dramatic, obviously. It's just to make sure the jury has more materials when they go back and deliberate, but it's essential, right? Because the testimony of Cassie was now 3 weeks ago. So some of that is going to fade from memory. You want to make sure that they go back with hard evidence in their hands to pour over, to sort of reacclimate themselves and reacquaint themselves with the evidence. And so summary witnesses in cases that are large and complex are very, very important.
One last point about the summary witness before we get on to talking about the juror that the prosecutors got dismissed.
Before we go on there, I mean, a summary witness is indeed, as stated, well stated by Beckerman and Kaufman, somebody who comes in and literally gives you, different summarization of the case, different text messages that were presented to and fro, so that it keeps the jurors' minds focused on the task at hand and not forgetful of what has transpired. So it was, as again, it was negotiated pre-trial, and and as to what this summary witness would entail in his testimony, and they got to present that testimony here. So again, it's again another witness for the prosecution to jog the memory of the jury in order to keep them sharp as to and abreast to what their job entails as a jurist. Let's continue.
This looks like,
juror, not jurist. Let's continue.
The case might be coming to an end, right? These summary witnesses are typically offered at the end of the prosecution's case.
That's a great point. They're sort of cleanup witnesses because they've gotten a lot through Cassie, through Jane, through Christina Quorum's direct testimony. And then this is just to make sure, did we forget anything? Let's throw it in through the summary witness. It's an indication that the prosecution's case in chief is coming to a close. They're going to call their final witnesses. I believe there's some special agents and some government employees that are going to still testify to just get more evidence into the record, but then they're going to turn it over to the defense and they're going to have their case in chief, and we're going to see the tide swing entirely in the other direction before this case, they hope, will be submitted to the jury before July 1st.
All right, so just to finish up.
So here first, ladies and gentlemen, Talk Live. Yeah, I mean, the prosecution's case is, as stated, is about to be summed up. The summary witness has done his or her job, and it is now soon to be turned over to the defense to present their case in chief. So again, a few more witnesses from the prosecution, and then the defense will take over their case. And then, as they stated, they'll the ball's in their court. They'll be able to show Diddy in a better light, definitely, than the prosecution would ever try or ever want to. And with that, it is hoped that indeed the trial will be over by July 1st. So again, we are winding things down. We're into week 4 or 5 of the week 5 into 6 of the trial. By this estimation, it is week number 3 of actual evidence. But again, you have to take into account uh, the jury selection. You have to take into account the opening arguments, and so on and so forth. That's why we consider this week 5 and 6. So let's continue with this. But it is hoped that the witness evidence part of the trial will be over by July 1st. Let's continue.
On the one issue that we started talking about last week, this is this juror that the prosecutors wanted to get removed from the case. They alleged this person had not been entirely truthful with with where they lived. They had said they lived in New York. Maybe they live in New Jersey. Maybe they moved during the pendency of the of the trial. So the judge, now the defense.
It looks like we're still streaming on Instagram, which is fantastic. So there's a breakthrough, ladies and gentlemen. We are still streaming on Instagram. We're still seeing it on YouTube. Please put your comments in pre or post show, but we are still singing on both platforms. So thank you very much for joining me and Talk Live. Let's continue.
On, I believe it was Friday, wrote a letter to the court saying, look, what prosecutors are trying to get rid of this person simply because they are an African-American male and they don't think he's good for the case, for their side of the case. They're using it as a pretext for why they want to get rid of this person. It's actually on racial grounds, which is not allowed. So Judge, we don't want you to dismiss this person from the jury pool. Prosecutors won the day. The judge actually did dismiss.
That's right. And to the defense's credit, Judge Subramanian, who was already leaning towards, let's get this juror out. If there's questions as to the residency requirement, which is a black and white rule, you have to live in New York in order to serve on this jury. It planted enough of a seed that he said, I'll take it under submission, and I want to review this during the weekend. He came back and said, this juror's got to go. There are questions about how candid they were about their residency. That is a firm requirement. I'm not going to sort of look into whether this was pretextual in favor of the prosecution by getting rid of a black juror. I'm going to bring up an alternate, and I'm not going to do that with any sort of view into the racial dynamics at play here. And I think that's the exact right call.
100% the right call. Remember, this jury was prior to the dismissal 4 white jurors and 7 jurors of color. We didn't get the breakdown. This is just from people who are talking people who are in court and reporting this back to the press. And then this person who was dismissed was, I guess, of Hispanic.
He was a 41-year-old black Hispanic man who was apparently a fan of hip hop. He worked for the Department of Corrections. There was some indication from his demographic makeup that the defense thought, this guy's going to be in our favor,
right,
and you're just trying to get someone who we picked for the jury out of this case.
But by the way, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But now I take that back. If it's because it's racially motivated, that there might be something wrong with that. But really, if it's based on the fact that they don't think because he's a hip hop fan, it's one of the things we learned about this person, that they think he might be more pro Diddy, it's okay for the prosecution to get rid of them. Just like, by the way, the defense would seek to get rid of somebody who they felt during the course of the trial had suggested that maybe they were in favor of the prosecution. They would use any.
And they had race-neutral grounds to do so. This was about whether he honestly was reporting his residency. Now, I thought about this, and I think the judge did an excellent job. If the judge starts, by the way, the alternate who came up is just the first in line. They're not looking, they have 6 alternates. There's someone who is alternate number 1. When a juror is excused, that alternate goes in. He's not
I want to
selecting
interrupt
amongst
you for a second. CMT 2013 says, isn't it a coincidence that the accountant juror was added on the day that all the accounting transactions came into evidence? So this is because the person who replaced juror number 6 happened to be a
57-year-old man from Westchester.
Right, who happened to be an accounting professional. No, the judge did not make any determination except that you are alternate juror number 1.
That's it.
And you step up, and that person was assigned at the beginning of the trial without respect to his profession. He just says simply that's the order in which they were selected, and he was alternate juror.
Yeah. Now people might have thought
Now, just before we go into this, it seems that indeed, um, that jury number 6, the Hispanic, this African American Hispanic male, um, was dismissed from the jury simply because he was indeed out of the moved from outside of the jurisdiction of New York during the trial, and so they used the letter of the law and got him out of there. So again, but again, to see. Uh, it's advantageous to the prosecution of the fact that he was a hip hop fan. He was an individual who knew of Diddy's music, and so it is it was a good win for the most part for the prosecution to get this witness out of there, so replace him with a looks like a white male accountant from Westchester, and and sort of even the odds there. But as was already stated, the jury is compiled of 4 white individuals and 7 people of color within the jury. So again, this is balance the odds. Yes. Will this continue? Um, will this tip the odds in the for the prosecution? We will see. However, this can be considered a win because again, this jury was, uh, you know, uh, as speculated by by trial experts, and also potentially by the defense as someone who was on the side of Diddy in this case, and may have been cast a John Destai over many of the prosecution's evidence. So to get him out of there would be considered a win for the prosecution. Let's continue.
you have 6 alternate jurors. Why not try to match as close as you can the 41-year-old black Hispanic with whoever is most similar to him? That's disastrous. The judge doesn't want to be in the business of trying to match the alternate to the guy who's dismissed.
You're Hispanic but not black, but you're black and not Hispanic. You just don't do that. You create them you put them in order. And by the way, that order is not predetermined based on any sort of ranking system. That order is just simply in which the random number was every juror. If you ever go to serve on jury duty, you would get a random number. Those are put in order. That person would have been next in line. They would have been put in the seat.
The last point I want to make about this, some people are saying, look, the prosecutors are trying to get this guy off because he's sympathetic to Diddy and just using this residency requirement. The alternative, think about the alternative. If they didn't sort of bring to the judge's attention and they were aware that there were residency concerns, they might be accused of sandbagging this issue and using it to their advantage. And then the defense, you could imagine saying, well, they knew this guy didn't satisfy the residency requirements. He's now convicted my client as guilty, and they knew he wasn't qualified to be on the jury. They would use it to keep him on the jury. So you just want to address these issues as they come up as cleanly as possible. And I thought Judge Subramanian was right to consider the complaint to the defense, but he's done a good job in ruling.
Let's go to a couple questions. Suzanne says, will all aspects of this trial stay sealed after it finishes? There really aren't many aspects of this trial that are currently sealed. We're hearing
except for the videos. You're not going to see those.
You're not going to see the videos, but and who knows? Things leak all the time, so
right.
the videos may emerge, but those are not going to be leaked. But we're hearing all the testimony. We've heard everything except the videos. I think I can't think of anything else.
It's been remarkably open, I would say, except for those videos.
Yeah.
Let's go to is that CMT?
CMT we already did. Enhanced creators.
If he was recording them and they knew, then why are they so surprised that he had them? He's referring to the videos, and the example he says is Cassie on the plane.
He's not surprised. They're not surprised that he has them. They're surprised that he is trying to extort them to basically say, if you try to leave me, or if you, in the case of Cassie, if you continue to say bad things about me, I'm going to out this. You better come back into the fold. According to Cassie's testimony, continue to have freak-offs, or I'm going to release this to your family.
That's right. This is not a surreptitious video necessarily, but him using them in this way is the force that they're trying to use.
Otherwise, surreptitiously recording a sex tape is a crime. So he may very well, there may have been charges for that, but no, that's not what he's accused of.
All right, let's go to some comments. Carter says, I've been listening on app.
So very good points raised there by Beckerman and Kaufman. It is, again, the prosecution is doing a damn good job of of showing Diddy as being the head of a criminal organization, including the use of videotape in order to coerce many of the people in his circle, including Cassie, including Mia, including many others who are involved in these crimes to be participants in these cases. Not so much Jane, because I think Jane was a willing participant. However, she was a victim of domestic violence, and it just showed a pattern of behavior. But it is, it is quite insightful that did he use these videotapes and other coercive means in order to get his way, showing that he is indeed head of a criminal organization through predicate offenses. Let's continue.
Apple, and I had no idea I could watch on YouTube. Thanks for keeping me updated.
Okay, so that we will leave there because there's not much left to go there. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have caught up. That was as of yesterday that the freak out videos were shown. Let me see if there's any more video coming out of here, and that would be a. Let me just check and see if we have any further videos to come. No, we are good to go here. So what we will do is this, ladies and gentlemen, as it is an hour and 19 minutes in, we are going to end our coverage here, and we will get back to normal business here on Talk Live as of tomorrow. So tomorrow will be another show. We have a few in the holster here that I have been delaying on for a few weeks now, that I want to get out as of tomorrow. And then Thursday we'll be back to another Diddy recap. Thursday Diddy trial as of covering not today's proceedings, Wednesday's proceedings, and potentially Thursday's proceedings as well. So do stay tuned to Talk Live for that. Thank goodness that we have now the streaming capabilities that we do, and that Talk Live is indeed live on IG and YouTube. I can see your comments on IG and YouTube. We will try definitely to move this forward and get things going on time and on with technology in tow, ladies and gentlemen. So do stay tuned with us on Talk Live for this. This will be automatically downloaded on IG. Let me see it on YouTube, so do stay tuned for that. But thank you very much for joining me here on IG, here on Talk Live. And do leave your comments with regards to the Diddy trial and where you see the Diddy trial going. For now, is the prosecution doing its job? Has the defense won any points with regards to matters going forward? And so we are now reaching the end of the prosecution's case, ladies and gentlemen. A few more witnesses to go, as stated by Beckerman and Kaufman here on Talk Live through TMZ and the Behind the Bar segment, YouTube platform they have on TMZ. And shout out to TMZ for doing the wonderful things in the YouTube streets. And we will be back tomorrow night with a new episode, new topic. And then Thursday we'll be back with another DD recap just to sum up the week, pretty much. So thank you very much for joining me here on Talk Live. We're going to end it right here, all in one go. And we will say thank you very much for joining me. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTALK.com. Let me get back to myself here. Bang. And thank you, Mang. Yes, indeed. And we're going to just say thank you very much for joining us here in Talk Live. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. We'll be back tomorrow night with new show ready to go. Getting back to the old Talk Live format. And then Thursday will be a Diddy recap. So look forward to that and look forward to seeing you very, very soon. And we are going to say thank you very much for those joining us on IG and YouTube tonight, going for the full stream. Thank you very much as we got those kinks out of the back of the Instagram most likely, but YouTube was working fine. But we're back here. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. 11:50. We're going to end it here, and we're going to say good night from Toronto, and we'll see you tomorrow night.